Okie dokie. Cloud Foundry Foundation Technical Oversight Committee then for what, 4th of October. Almost Christmas. Agenda for today then. We've no action to review from last week, so we'll skip that. We'll hear from Gregg on the App Runtime Interfaces working group. That's a mouthful. We'll talk about secrets and how we manage them in the orgs, and then review a couple of outstanding PRs. If anybody has any PRs that they want to discuss and on that list, go ahead and add them as we go through things. Does that sound correct to everyone? Is there anything that anybody would like to add to the agenda before we make a start? No? Okay. Over to you, Craig.
All right. So let's see. I don't remember exactly when the last time I gave an update to the working group was, so I don't remember exactly the diff set. But I guess big events that have happened in the working group somewhat recently. So obviously the item that has affected us most has been the big Cloud Foundry team enforcements activity that we kicked off like over a year ago.
You created a spicy PR. That's what all started it.
Yeah, exactly. But I think we were pretty well prepared as far as teams go. I think we were not super well prepared for some of the more subtleties of the change, specifically as I think you're scheduled to discuss later on, things like branch protection and GitHub secret management. So those have definitely been two pain points. Like we basically, we had our teams all set up in line, but then they weren't reflected by a bunch of different branch protection rules. So then a bunch of teams lost access, even though their governance was technically in line there. So I had to go in and swap out a bunch of branch protection rules. And then also for GitHub secrets, I think this is affecting teams, different teams differently. So I think the majority of the teams don't actively use GitHub Actions or care that much about GitHub secrets, but there are some teams like the Buildpacks team and especially the CLI team who do use GitHub Actions very heavily. Like the CLI team within the last year has migrated to using GitHub Actions as their primary release mechanism. So they're pretty heavily dependent on GitHub secrets. So the current state of them not being able to modify those secrets has been a bit of a pain for them. I think in the interim, I've just been manually updating secrets for them, but that doesn't seem like a very scalable long-term solution for them. Other things that have been going on, we within the last few months have, thanks to Chris and the Linux Foundation, got a GCP account where the autoscaler team is in the process of setting up a pipeline there. I think we've somewhat similarly had a little bit of permission back and forth. They've been trying to set up some service accounts, but interestingly, they don't have permissions to assign permissions to those service accounts, but also by default, it seems like I, as one of the owners of that project, don't have permissions to see the service accounts by default. I have permissions to grant myself visibility for the service accounts, but if I don't know that they exist, then I can't grant myself permissions to see them. So there's some kind of interesting stuff going on there. But luckily, we worked around it by giving someone who is actually doing the work more access there. So I think that worked around in the short term and is helpful for migrating more of our pipelines over to a GCP account that is linked to our working group. Previously, they were kind of chilling in, I think, the infrastructure release pipeline or something like that. So that's been good progress there. I guess as far as like big feature sets go, in addition to some of that infrastructural work, I think probably the biggest thing that's happened in our working group recently has been CF Linux FS4. So the Buildpacks team has released a first version of CF Linux FS4 based on Ubuntu 22.04 Jammy Jellyfish. And they're in the process of releasing Buildpacks for the new stack. Currently, they have Node, Java, and .NET, and they're currently working on Python, last I heard. So they should continue to release those. As far as the build packs go, they're basically just adding CF Linux FS4 support to the existing build packs. So, that should just roll out in the course of the regular releases of the build packs. So you should just, in your environments, start seeing build packs that are compatible with CF Linux FS4 as well. And then you can start migrating applications to the new stack. I think, at some point, just due to Canonical no longer supporting CF Linux FS3, CF Linux FS3 support will go away. So that's definitely something every operator should be thinking about, is what their plan for migrating to CF Linux FS4 is going to look like. I think we're hoping that we will be able to provide some additional support on the CLI and API and potentially API side for helping Cloud Foundry operators understand what stack all of their applications are running on, and maybe providing some tooling for helping them migrate all of the different applications on their deployments to the new stack. But I think right now all of that is something we're thinking about, but don't have a concrete plan on. So we'll share more about that as we've had some more opportunities to think about it. I guess other interesting things that are going on the cloud controller side, they recently released a new experimental web server option for running on Puma instead of Event Machine and Thin, which we hope should be more performant. It's still pretty early stages, and there's going to be a number of other changes along the way. Right now, a lot of the cloud controller metrics don't line up super well with how Puma operates. So I think there's going to be some additional efforts there to make it so that not only you can run a cloud controller with Puma, but it's actually a reasonable operation experience. So that's going to be some ongoing effort there. But the hope is that cloud controller will now be able to scale with multiple cores without having to relocate multiple or co-locate multiple cloud controllers on the same box or something like that. I guess there's been some continuous work by the folks at SAP to continue to improve queries within Cloud Controller to help speed that up and make it scale better. I think, people here are probably familiar that SAP is definitely pushing the boundaries on or pushing the bleeding edge of how large people have scaled Cloud Foundry. So I think that's always exciting to see. And then the final thing that I have on my list is a big product advancement or feature advancement is we released a ARM version of the CF CLI. So for those of you who are running on the ARM-based MacBooks, you should now be able to install that natively, and it should hopefully just work without you having to mess around with any translation layer there.
Very much, Gregg. Having an ARM version of CF CLI is incredibly welcome. My entire team is on the fancy M1 Macs now, and we've just had troubles with all sorts of random tools and been very frustrated by it because we did not expect to have these problems.
Yeah, so you will have to upgrade to the latest version of CLI v8 in order to get the ARM support, I believe. But hopefully that shouldn't be that much of an issue, especially if you're, if you're already on latest 8 or new versions of CLI version 8, then no issue there. If you're currently on 7, the upgrade is pretty minimal, so that shouldn't be an issue. If you're on 6, then you're way behind the times.
Well,
but that upgrade won't be that hard. There is an upgrade guide to help walk you through it.
Perfect. You mentioned support for CF Linux FS3 dropping in the video. Do you have any sense of timescale for that?
Yeah, so this is still something that we're in the process of figuring out. I think CF Linux FS3 will continue to be available in the technical sense of the word, but it's going to definitely, it's already starting to rot some. Just as Canonical is releasing less frequent and less thorough patches for Bionic. So it's going to continue to be released for the near term, and we'll definitely announce more once we have a finite plan for what it is. But I think the looking forward, we're going to continue to try to release it as long as we can, just so that people continue to get the critical patches that Canonical is cutting. But I would definitely expect it will start to naturally degrade in quality as we go along, just due to upstream effects.
And the official end of support for Bionic is April of next year, right? 2023.
Yeah.
Do you plan to add CF Linux FS4 as the default to CF deployment? And do you have already an idea?
Yeah, that work is currently in flight by the team that's managing CF deployment. I don't have the latest update there, but I heard as of last week that was something that they were actively working on. So hopefully that should be coming down soon. But yeah, as far as CF Linux FS3 goes, I think I'm not directly connected to this, but I think we've already seen some cases where Canonical is deferring some CVEs or fixing some CVEs on Bionic. So it's still in full support, but we've definitely seen them starting to transition off of being aggressive with fixing things as they are on their more cutting edge stuff.
Are you planning to totally get rid of Event Machine, or is it only the web server side that's...
Oh, I really hope we can get rid of Event Machine. So currently it's configurable which web server you use. So by default, you'll continue to use Event Machine and Thin. And then also, some of the metric stuff is still dependent on Event Machine in some configurations. I guess the details, historically, Cloud Controller has used statsd, but they're in the process of moving over to Prometheus instead, just as part of a larger movement over towards Prometheus across Cloud Foundry. So the primary difference there is statsd is a push, push metrics. So Cloud Controller has to have periodic timers for emitting metrics to the statsd agent. And currently it uses Event Machine to do that as well. In the future, where we are switching over to Puma and Prometheus, then Prometheus is a pull. So Cloud Controller will just expose metrics endpoints that then the Prometheus scraper will harvest metrics from. So in that world, I'd be very disappointed if we weren't able to remove Event Machine from Cloud Controller's gem file. But I suppose anything is possible, but our goal is definitely to get that thing out of there.
Yeah, there's no nets extraction anymore from Cloud Controller, right?
No.
Yeah, that's the thing we have on the Bosch director. That's heavily relying on the event machine.
And is the Puma option productive? Can be used in production, or it's now in a beta phase and something is missing there?
Yeah, I think I would only use it in experimental situations right now. I think there's still some more fit and finish for actually like making sure it's something that will be a smooth operator experience in a production environment. But I definitely encourage people to start testing it out in pre-production environments and see what sort of behavior you're seeing there. I think, there's definitely some opportunities for tuning it. And like I said, some opportunities for understanding like what metrics are valuable there. So any early feedback would definitely be appreciated.
So yes, we plan to look inside, but definitely only on dev landscapes, not yet in production.
I mean, if you want to deploy it in production, it would be certainly be beneficial for gathering data. I don't know if it'd be beneficial for the stability of your production environment, but
we want to deploy it in production, but we will go a smooth road there. It will take some time. I mean, it has to work.
And I mean, I think
I'm very happy about these changes. It looks very promising, and
I mean, we saw several years ago, we saw big improvements on Bosch Director's performance when moving over to Puma. So I'm hoping that we see similar things here, and at the very least, it will give you more ability to tune Cloud Controller. I think, under the current thin event machine model, you don't have very many options as an operator for actually mapping Cloud Controller's performance to the hardware you're running it on. Puma should give you a lot more, for better or for worse, should give you a lot more knobs that you can turn to help better fit Cloud Controller's performance and resource usage to the environment you're actually running it in.
Yeah, definitely.
But any more? No?
Gregg, are there places where we have visibility into like roadmaps and things for various areas yet? I know that was one thing we talked about at one of the last check-ins.
Yeah, that's a great question. So like 6 months ago, I had made a roadmap in GitHub, but we have not populated it with anything. So the answer is no. I think I may sync up with some of the other working groups to see how they've been managing their backlogs. I think it's not something that we have as a working group naturally found value in, but that might be because we don't know what we're doing. So I'll follow up with with some of the other working groups and see what their, now that we've been doing this for a while, see what their experiences have been maintaining that roadmap and see if we can come up with some strategies for actually making that useful for us.
Maybe it would already help if there would be, let's say, a little announcement regarding CF Linux FS4 plan. And if it's just vague to say, let's say, it will be available in CF deployment around, I don't know, November, and Buildpacks will be released around whatever, because this is the tricky thing where you have to talk with your customers about the migration plan. And that's, I think, the risky thing. The Puma stuff, that's more experimental, and nobody will see it beside performance impact and operators. But the CF Linux FS4, I think Jammy is now more or less done. And I think the CF deployment release is still open, but this is more, it should be released pretty soon.
Yep.
So technically, I'm not aware of any blockers anymore.
No. Last call. Nope. Okay, let us move on. Thank you very much for that, Gregg. Right, secrets then. I had provisionally written this down as a question about what roles should be able to access and manage secrets and how that should be enabled, but I am quite willing to have misinterpreted the question. So if anybody wants to clarify that any.
I'm not aware about the secrets, but I'm aware about this one issue regarding branch protection rules, and maybe the
I think
secrets are related.
this is yeah, this is getting to Greg, what you were saying about I think primarily with the CLI team and area having converted their CI over to GitHub Actions and using GitHub secrets, and now they can't manage them because they don't have admin access.
Yeah, it's also affecting the Buildpacks team.
I mean, the problem is actually that there was this request for the branch protection rules that this org automation should automatically configure it. I mean, letting alone what should it configure, what do we want to have or enforce one type of branch protection rules to all projects. I doubt that this works out. Anyway, the use tooling Peribolus simply doesn't support setting such detailed configuration on the repository. So I don't think this is a solution. The major issue as of today is that only the workgroup leads have admin rights and can get to branch protection rules, secrets, and all the more detailed configuration. And maybe we could think about something like a workgroup area admin to distribute these rights a bit more, or the other way around, grant certain people from workgroup areas, promote them to technical leads, which broadens the access then to all repositories. So maybe the workgroup area admin role is, let's say, more precise here. The disadvantage is that once you have admin roles, you can, in theory, simply delete a repository. This is something what we wanted to prevent from the TOC. All the other configuration, I would say from TOC, there is no need to somehow dictate rule or whatever. I mean, the working groups know best how to deal with this configuration. So at the end of the day, it's a question of trust, assuming that we don't get these fine-grained roles. I think this was discussed and would require a new plan. So this is probably out of the game. Then my best answer to these requests would be that we add an workgroup area admin role and see how it works out, and of course trust those people that have this role.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a little wary of making the working group role hierarchy even more complicated and patchwork too, because I mean, that's almost now kind of an independent dimension of workgroup access. We've had kind of, I don't know, I feel like we've had a fairly linear sequence of role progressions, you know, from contributor to reviewer to approver to lead. And now this is, I don't know, I mean, maybe it's just kind of in the middle between like a approver in a particular area and a technical lead, but yeah, I don't know. It's certainly making things more complicated when it's already a little bit difficult to explain the set of roles that we have.
How often do we have to like update secrets? Is that like a really regular thing, which is becoming annoying, or is it okay to have to reach out to the tech leads to make those changes?
I think for teams that are using GitHub Actions pretty actively, you know, it happens with pretty high regularity. Like, I don't know, just within the last week or so, I think I've had across my teams that use GitHub Actions, I've had to add or modify, I think 3 or 4 secrets in like a few instances. I think some of it is also just like, I mean, maybe this is just since we only have one lead in my working group, I'm like a single point of failure on like blocking pipelines or whatever. I guess technically they could escalate to the TOC also. But It's just kind of like, this is something that historically has been the jurisdiction of the teams, but now under the new governance model, the teams no longer have access. And also just like the handoff credentials is always a little awkward, because it's like, well, ideally these are credentials because we don't want them to leak somewhere. So then we need to come up with some sort of secure way of like transferring the credentials over and that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I'd say it's not like a critical issue, but it is definitely an annoyance as it's happened so far. I think it's also kind of interesting because there's like such a wide gulf between the GitHub like writer and admin roles. And I think they recognized this and solved the problem with the maintainer role and then hid the maintainer role away in their enterprise plans. So I don't know, it seems like kind of a jerk move by GitHub.
I think actually we might still just be on a pretty old GitHub plan that doesn't have access to maintainer. If we were up to date, then we would get access to it, but it would also, I think, be more expensive.
That's correct. Yeah, it would be significantly expensive as opposed to not at all expensive. So that one feature probably isn't worth the many thousands of dollars that it would cost to get it. I mean, I'm open to it actually. I mean, if we really felt that was essential, we could potentially do that, but it would be, you know, tens of thousands of dollars a year to get that one feature, I think. So.
I mean, were there other, I remember this coming up in the past before we were aware of GitHub secrets. I think that there were other privileges that we thought would be convenient for the approvers to have in that maintainer role instead of just having write access. We might have to go back and
branch protection rules.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah.
Right. So that is something we think is worth spending a large amount of money on. I'm totally open to it, but we can do that. One thing too about GitHub is in the past they've had like with GitHub Actions and various things, they've tried to get us to upgrade our account and then to get access to things that we wanted, and then 6 months, 8 months later, they just gave those to everyone. So, you know, maybe those things will just become part of the current plan we're on too at some point. It's hard to say. But if this is something we want to continue to pursue, I'm happy to do that. It's just I can price it out, but I think it's going to be quite expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that someone has proposed is currently bot accounts are kind of a like cheat code for getting around the governance model. So people could theoretically use bot accounts also for managing these things.
Yes. Bot accounts have editor rights or write rights, but no admin rights. So I don't think.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Time to add admin bot accounts then.
What do you want to use them for?
You just have a credential bot. You send your credentials to the credential bot, and then the credential bot adds your credentials.
Sounds secure.
Yeah, exactly.
Have a Slack integration.
I'm just catching up.
Yeah, I want to get back on the branch protection thing, because that is actually it's actually possible to automate branch protection, because in the same set of tooling that there's so there's Peribolos, that's like one tool in that repo, but they also have a branch protector. It's a different binary, but it has the same functionality.
Ah, okay. Wasn't aware.
Yeah. So that would be something that we could implement in the future, but we have to, first have some proposals around default branch protection rules and like what needs to be configurable and whatnot. So one thing I was thinking about when it comes to default rules would be something like star, like protect all the branches and start enforcing to reviews to reviewers from the appropriate working group. Or GitHub team, right? And what's another thing? Oh yeah, and allow bots to merge PRs without review or something like that. That would be like a sane default, but still we'd have to think about the additional options that people might need.
I fear you may have just volunteered yourself to write a
No,
proposal there.
I found someone else within VMware that was more in need of this, and they have a story in the backlog.
Oh, perfect.
So the
Is
people
that
from
437 or 438? We've got it in the
I don't know.
list about branch protection rules.
I don't know if they've already created. Was someone from the cryogenics people that reached out and had some issues with branch protection. So they were interested in pursuing this.
Okay. Just very quick, we did have. Yeah,
There's
so,
a separate issue, yeah, 438.
Yeah.
That Ben Fuller filed about branch protection rules.
I haven't had a chance to read this at all. There's quite a lot to get through there. It sounds like today secrets are annoying for sure.
GitHub Action secrets.
Yes. I mean, secrets generally are annoying, but I don't think they're causing a vast amount of harm right now, by the sounds of it. And so we can probably take our time a little on working this out. Does that sound fair? We don't need to rush anything. Branch protection sounds like it's more painful. Have I understood that correctly?
Branch protection, there's like a clear path forward. We just need to define what the rules we want and what controls we need. With regards to secrets, I would propose to make a temporary workaround team. We have ability to do that, right? So if you need, like if the Buildpack teams and stuff are currently blocked, just make a proposal to add a temporary workaround team that's created outside of the working group definitions, and then we can just have a few people there with appropriate rights so that you will be unblocked if they are. And then we at least keep track of that being an issue, and we know which teams are affected, right? I think that would be the ideal solution. Because like from a security stance, I mean, the fact that we have enabled this new automation, I mean, a few weeks ago we didn't have that, right? So it's not that we have to really strictly enforce those things. It would be nice if we can lock things down, but if we have locked it down too much and people are hurt in their day-to-day work, we have still that workaround. So
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't sound terrible to me. Sounds like a fair solution. I think what I want to understand is how quickly do we need to turn around stuff on branch protection? Is it something we can take our time over? Is it something that needs that we would want like a proposal by this time next week?
So the thing is, we have a workaround because the tech leads can just come in and fix the branch protection rules. So that's what I've done for my working group, and I think Gregg has also done those things, right? So people have reached out. The people that were hit by this have reached out by this point, and those things have been resolved. So I don't think there's a big fire currently. So we can take our time to do this properly. So there will be more of like the same thing we did with the teams, right? We iterate over this for a long time, get all the feedback, and then implement a solution.
Perfect. That.
And you don't need to adjust those rules so often, the branch protection rules, correct? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
People were just running into it because they had admin access through unofficial teams, and so they could do whatever they wanted.
So the big thing behind branch protection, if we're going to automate that, is that we're going to enforce the 2 reviews from reviewers. thing, right? That's going to be the big change, and that's currently not enforced over, in all the repos. So that's like just a, I don't know. It's currently based on the honesty principle, I guess. And with that, with proper branch protection rules, we will enforce it over the whole org. So that will have an impact on people's day-to-day. So those are not the actual questions we're getting when it comes to branch protection, right? It's more like, I cannot merge things, please help me. But then like the additional thing will be the 2 reviewers rule that will be enforced.
And about the GitHub secrets, GitHub Action secrets, have we discussed to give admin role to the approvers? Is it too much then to not make the roles complicated? Okay.
Yeah, it's too much, because the thing is, when we start to put in branch protection to enforce the approvals, like as an approver with admin, you can always force merge. Or maybe you can disable that, but I mean, like they can disable that setting, right? So that's the, we basically have no enforcement on that 2 reviewers per VR rule.
I see.
Okay. I'm happy to take this away, go read what's been written, formalize some of what you're suggesting, Ruben, and just have something that we can look at hopefully next week. If not the week after. Is that a path we want to go down? I'm not seeing objections, so.
Yeah. Greg, do you have enough information about the workaround team, or can you make a PR for that, or do you need some help with that?
Sorry, this is for which issue?
For the GitHub, what's it? Secrets, the secrets of GitHub Actions. So
yeah, I mean,
basically-
I don't think any teams are like actively blocked on it. I think it's more just like a process annoyance. I think the CLI team has also said that if this continues to be a problem, they might move their GitHub pipeline over to run in a different organization where they can directly manage their secrets. But I don't think there's like any active fires there.
But I mean, like that sounds like additional work that is actually not beneficial, because I think it's better from a community's point of view to have the GitHub Actions run close to the CLI. So I would rather give a few people in that team admin so that I can manage it, and then keep them here until we find a long-term solution.
Yeah, I think I'll definitely follow up with the team. But I think that makes sense to me.
Yeah, just like if they want to pursue this, just reach out and help.
Yeah, like we said, we can have a temporary team that's very focused on granting them the access that they need to manage the secrets. I'd prefer that to them putting stuff in a shadow GitHub organization that nobody has any context on.
Okay. It sounds like we have conclusions there, and things we can take away and do. So let us move on. I'm going to move on to outstanding PRs. I'm going to tick the first one off because that's the branch protection one, and I feel like we might have just had that conversation. So, 439 then. I think these are just a couple of formalities more than anything. Just checking that nobody objects. I think we've got more than majority approvals, but one final check before we merge. No, okay. Green button pressed. And 437 is much of the same. In fact, exactly the same. No objections. Oh, go. Green button pressed. Are there any other PRs or issues folks think we should be looking at? No? Perfect. Any other business then?
Briefly, thought Foundry Day, chugging along. Things are moving in the right direction. Ram and I are wrapping up a few minor things that we're going to chat with the CFKs and Keto Buildpacks working group calls today. Office hours at the virtual booth, things like that. The sign up sheet for the booth is pretty much full, so thank you all for that. It's great to see everyone jumping on that. So we've got basically, I think there's a couple spots on Friday left. That would be nice to fill, but I'm less concerned about Friday than Wednesday and Thursday. So that's moving along. And yeah, we're finalizing various PR things and handouts and stuff. Eric, thanks for your feedback on that. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, please reach out. We'll be announcing to the details for the reception that night for those that'll be there in person. On Tuesday night, we'll have a reception at a local restaurant. That should be a lot of fun. So yeah, things are moving along there.
Fantastic.
Awesome. That's great.
And that's going to be a good one. Anything else from anyone? Nope. Well, thank you very much, folks. That was incredibly useful and productive. I'll see you all again this time next week-ish. Catch you all.
Wow.
Bye bye.